asked her to describe herself, and she said, fiercely independent, fiercely strong-minded, and fiercely devoted to love. Aww. Ladies and gentlemen, please get up for Natalie!
May 1998. It was hot. Islington, Upper Street. I was dressed very smartly. It was my first job since university, and I was going to meet a supplier. It was quite exciting, because we'd spoken quite a lot on the telephone, and I suppose secretly I quite liked the sound of this chap on the end of the phone. So we met and we sat in this pub on Upper Street in Islington, and we had the best afternoon. I was a newly employed graduate. I don't think I was meant to have a 6-hour lunch break. It consisted of lots of bottles of wine and lots of conversation. And it was such a fabulous afternoon. I left with a spring in my step, and I went back the next day to my graduate job and carried on as I did. And it wasn't for some 6 months later that I met with my parents. And they said, darling, you graduated, we're very proud of you. You've got your first job in London, you're living with girlfriends. We really want to go to Spain and retire. Is that okay? Yes, I said, of course it's okay. And I'm thinking, of course it's okay, because that's what you want to do, and I've always agreed with what you want to do, and that's what I do, because I'm your child and I'm a good girl, and that's what you do. So yes, of course, go. You're going to have a wonderful, wonderful, retirement, so to speak. But that was funny, because it wasn't to be my parents' retirement. In 1987, I was 12 years old. I lived in Canada, and my parents said, we're going to move to England. Is that okay? Yes. I'm coming. I'm happy. You're my parents. It's about bricks. That's not my home, where there's a pile of bricks. It's where my family are. My mother and father. And being true, I should actually say my mummy and daddy. Yes, I was one of these children, and today I stand here at 42 years old and still call my mother mummy. Not when I'm referring to her, but in her presence I do. And they said, we're moving. So that summer, we left Canada, not moving, but actually going on a summer adventure. So it was my father's retirement. He was 42 years old. Wow. Amazing. We were going around Europe. So today, you can probably resonate with the fact if you've got Mr. and Mrs. Smith card, and you go around Europe and you stay in all these lovely boutiques, but no. We were doing the Relais Chateau guide. And it was amazing. We went to Switzerland, we went to Spain, we went to France, we went to Portugal. We went all over Europe for 6 weeks, and then we rented a villa for a month in Super Camp. Amazing. And then it was time to relocate from Canada to England. We arrived, and I think quite quickly, probably after about 6 months, I realised that this was the first time in my life I actually knew my father. I didn't know him before then. He was so busy working, he was stressed out, he was a venture capitalist. Yes, there's financial rewards that come with that, but there's also the other side of it, and that's the sacrifice of spending time with people that you care about and actually getting to know people. So I was so fortunate at the tender age of 14 to actually get to know my father for the first time. My mum was always present. She had a part-time job. It's brilliant in Canada because she actually job shared a part-time job, so it was kind of like a quarter-time job. But it was lovely because she was home every day and she was happy and my father was happy, my sister and I were happy. But we thought we were happy. It wasn't until you have time to be and know that that's happy. Knowing my father, not remembering that we used to go to the cookie club at Safeway on a Saturday and that was our day out to get a cookie. Now it was actually day in, day out, he was there. And it was brilliant. I went to a lovely school. It was great because it was an all-boys school. And I was one of the first girls that was taken into the admission. So I had lots of friends that were boys, not quite boyfriends, but friends that were boys. And suddenly, obviously, you get a bit older in life, and suddenly these boys become actual boyfriends instead of boys that are friends. And daddy's little girl. No one's quite good enough for daddy's little girl. I think we've all heard that expression. So my first boyfriend, we were going to Spain for the summer. My mother and I fly because we absolutely flat out refused to drive in the car. And my boyfriend says, no, I will drive with your father. I hear it. Yes. So they set off on their 3-day car journey. My mother and I fly. So they get to the other end, and my father has great delight in telling me that in their stopover at Paris, my boyfriend actually decided to order the steak tartare. Oh, but darling, I knew he didn't know what it was. Oh, what great delight that he had to then sit there to eat this whole plate of raw meat, chopped up into a pretty little mound. Yes, that was my dad's style. I think what he really wanted was for this little 19-year-old scrawny lad that I actually thought the world of to stand up and say, do you know what? I fucking hate raw meat. I've ordered the wrong thing. Can I have something else? But no, that was not to be. We then had the occasion when we were going to a ball, and suddenly my then boyfriend's mother said, you don't have a dinner jacket. I know, you can wear Dad's dinner jacket. So I go home to tell my father, and what does he do? Print out on tiny sheets of paper, Moss Bros Hire Shop, puts them up, each A4 piece of paper with each letter in the bay window of the kitchen. As he comes up the drive to see Moss Bros Hire Shop, I beg him to take it down. He says, what kind of boy wants to out my daughter in my clothes? It's just absurd. And that was my father. Of course he was right. You know, did I want to be someone that wanted to dress in my father's clothes and didn't have the courage to say to his own mother, I don't want to wear someone else's clothes to take my girlfriend out? No. So anyway, as you can imagine, that faded to my father's delight. We then fast forward probably 3-4 years, and my parents are safely in Spain, settled. I meet a lovely chap, May 1998, in Islington on Upper Street. And on that day, I didn't realise that I was going to meet someone that was going to change my life forever. And I didn't realise on that day at Upper Street that actually I was going to meet someone that was going to make me a better person for knowing. For every person I met, I was going to be a better person. Just for knowing that one single person. It wasn't quite meant to be though. So my parents are in Spain, and I sort of introduce after a little while that I've got a new boyfriend. We've had a few along the way that haven't quite obviously ticked the box to what my father thought his darling daughter should have. So I've introduced the idea, and I'm very excited, and I'm going for a birthday dinner. Again, it doesn't quite go to plan. We arrive late to Marylebone High Street to find that my father has changed the birthday cake that my then boyfriend has arranged, because apparently chocolate's my favourite, not vanilla. I just thought at that stage, actually, it's jolly nice someone arranged a cake. But no, it was all being changed. My father proceeded to call my new boyfriend by the wrong name all night. And I do not joke, it was horrendous. No, we're going to stick with this. A few days after the big birthday dinner, my father says, I don't know what you're doing with him. He's a taker. You have so much to give. You are 23 years old. He's 7 years your senior. He's got a wife. He's got 3 children. He just wants a nursemaid. Okay, yes, he's still technically married, but they're not living together, and they weren't when I met him. And yes, he's got 3 children, but what he didn't seem to say was that he changed his full-time job around. He used to start at 10 o'clock so that he could take the children to school at 9 o'clock, and he used to work till 6 o'clock, and then his old parent-in-laws who used to have the children every day after school. So this man I'd met actually was a totally different picture to what my father was painting, but I listened and I said, no, I don't agree with you. No, you're not right. You're not having this one. And there were so many things through my life that I just, yeah, that's okay. You're right. That's okay. But not for this one thing. I don't know what it was. But there was some trigger inside me that I wasn't going to be the good girl. I wasn't going to be Daddy's girl. What I was going to be was my own person and followed what I knew to be true to me. And I'm so, so, so lucky that I had the parents I had, because they gave me the gift of having that inner strength. They gave me the gift of knowing that I can step forward and say, no, this is my life and this is my decision. At the time, it was very, very hard, because I didn't speak to my father for 9 months. It was the longest 9 months of my life. And I lived in a house share with 3 of my closest friends, who to this day are still my urban family. And my mother phoned and said, your father's in London. He was on his way to the States, but he's seen a doctor and they think it's too severe for him to fly. I said, okay, I'll meet him tomorrow at Baker Street. I'll be there. We hadn't spoken for 9 months. One of my housemates looked at me and she said, why are you going? I didn't think you should go. And again, I thought, no, this is my decision. And I went and I met him at 9:30 at Baker Street Station. We walked in silence to the London clinic to be told my father had stage 4 stomach cancer with a prognosis of 12 months. Within 9 months, he was dead. And I'm so thankful for the person that my parents prepared me, taught me, and gave me the strength to be. Because had I not gone on that day, I would not be there 3 weeks before my father died. For him to say to me, all I want and all I've ever wanted is for you to be happy. So I now can walk in my life knowing that I made the right choice. It was never a choice. It wasn't a choice between my father and my beau. It was actually standing and being true to myself and knowing that that strength would see me through. And had I not gone to Baker Street that day, I wouldn't know that actually I did have my father's blessing. Follow your own way. Your way. It might not always be the right way, but knowing it's your way, somewhere you'll find it to be the right way. I leave you with that. Thank you.